Hello everybody, a very warm welcome then to the first race of the season, the Ferrari Challenge UK 2023, about to get underway. Chris Hartley here to talk you through all the action that's coming up. Alongside me in the commentary box is Adam Weller, and the cars are just heading out onto the circuit now. A later than scheduled start to the race, and that is because of a couple of incidents in the qualifying session and a chance to get all the drivers out on track. So we understand there are going to be a couple of changes of car. We also have a very enticing situation in that one of the very quick drivers wasn't able to go out in qualifying at all and has therefore got to start right at the back of the field. So we're going to have quick drivers at the front battling for the lead, and some quick drivers coming through from at or near the back of the field as well. It is a beautiful day here at Snetterton. The air temperature around about 15 degrees. Track temperatures actually a little bit cooler than it was for qualifying, and that might be a good thing because albeit the times were good in qualifying, they weren't quite as quick as the fastest times we saw in the slightly cooler free practice 2 session. So ideal sessions for them, ideal conditions, not really any wind here as well. The cars just making their way to the grid then, and this is the first weekend of the season around the super quick, super challenging Snetterton 300 circuit. So let's take a look at a flying lap around here on board with Graham Dazil. And on the way then into Rich's corner at the end of the long centre straight. Turn right through here, but it's a narrow exit, so make sure you don't drift wide onto the grass. Then down towards the hairpin at Wilson, slowest corner on the lap. Hard on the brakes, a chance to lunge down the inside. We saw a couple of coming together here in qualifying, and a couple of red flags as a result of that. Out of there then you head into the left-hander and into Palmer as you're coming out through the end of section 1 into sector 2 on the lap. And this is the tight, twisty infield section on the Snetterton circuit. So down you go towards Agostini. There's bound to be lots of overtaking in this corner when we get to the race later on. Through there you go. It's a nice wide exit, and then you've got a pretty fiddly left-right sequence coming up through Hamilton first, the left-hander, where it all narrows up on the exit. So stick on the inside, hold it to the inside, last second drag it across to the outside to again get the straight line through this next right-hander through Oggy's Williams, building up the speed, hold the throttle, and then another right-hander coming up after that short link straight. Get the throttle down as soon as you can, unleash 670 brake horsepower, unleash the full potential of these 3.9 litre V8 engines, and thunder down the Bentley straight, which is over 900 metres long, nearly a kilometre long. And then under the bridge you go, down a couple of gears and into the left-right sequence. Still plenty of speed carried through Brundle the left, through Nelson the right. Take it then across to the left before you attack the bomb hole. Camber to the inside of the corner there, lots of grip. Huck it up on the inside curb into Coram curve, this big sweeping right-hander, and you're still turning right as you're about to hit the brake and go into Murray's the left-hander, so the car can get unsettled here. Take the inside curb again, don't get all the power too early, otherwise you run wide there, and get a good exit, because again it is a very long run up the centre straight to complete a lap here at Snetterton. So that a flying lap, and that is the driver that has been flying all day long. This is Andrew Morrow in his second season of Ferrari Challenge UK. He never raced anything at all before last season, and in only his second weekend of 2022 got a first race victory here at Snetterton, and it's Andrew that has been setting the pace, the driver who competes in the number 4 car, backed by Charles Hurst, the team that run the car, the dealership that run the car. And he had a terrific morning with fastest time in free practice 1, the absolute fastest time of the day so far in free practice 2. And then, although he wasn't quite as quick as he'd gone before in qualifying, he was more than quick enough to set pole position time and start this first round of 10 here on pole position. Alongside him there on the front row of the grid there, you're going to have number 16 H. Sickins, who is a driver that was a race winner here at Snetterton last year. It's the Dutch driver on the front row with him. And a driver that again has been up there second, third, all the way through the sessions so far today. So a very promising front row that we're going to have. Qualifying highlights then, and there were certainly 1 or 2 incidents in the 30-minute session that set the grid for this one. One of the first drivers to go out and set a time was Stuart Marston, number 15. Actually saved his tyres, only did 4 laps on circuit, only a couple of flying laps, then called it a day, looking to save his Pirelli tyres for these pretty warm conditions for this race. Jonathan Satchell, who was on the podium here in Coppa last year in the number 7 car, was out on track and going well today, and with his brand new purple and pink livery, last year's championship runner-up in Coppa, number 20 Paul Rogers, was in good form as well. He was the quickest of the Coppa drivers in that qualifying session. a couple of hours ago. There's Andrew Morrow, who is out and setting the pace. Not only did he get the fastest lap of the session, he got the second best lap of the session as well. And for some of the drivers coming into the championship for the first time, a chance to experience qualifying for the first time. They're the number 13 car of Robert Rees. It might be a different car when we see him on the grid for this one, after he was involved in an incident which brought about one of 2 red flags. There was the big incident itself, coming together with Faisal Al-Faisal. We know that Faisal is going to be a different car for this race, so he's not going to be the grey number 76 car for Faisal, but a red number 5 car. And he'll be making his way shortly to the grid. He actually qualified pretty well before all of that took place, and is on the 5th row of the grid. He's going to be qualifying inside the top 10. So Andrew Morrow and H. Sickins on the front row of the grid. But Adam Weller, we have got a sandwich bookmark sort of situation here, because there are very quick drivers at the back of the field as well to watch coming through.
Yes, exactly right. Be it Graham DeZille, be it Carl Cavers, there are a lot of exciting people who are going to come through from the back of the order. However, one exciting person who's down on the grid we know is Dave Richardson, and I believe he's awaiting us.
Was it awaiting you said, or is he awake? I don't know what it was. Adam, Chris, good afternoon. Welcome to the grid. We're taking things into our own hands here yet, because not every car is on the grid, so I'm expecting Ezra, my cameraman, and I to be run over at any point. But if you're going to be run over, a 488 Challenge Evo isn't a bad car to be hitting you up the backside, is it? Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to the grid for race 1 of our 2023 season, Ferrari Challenge UK. A very, very populated grid with some established drivers and some new drivers as well. If we look this side, Ezra, one of our new drivers that's joining us here is Chris Smith in the number 69 car. The wonderful black, red and white livery across the Chris Smith car. We wish him well in his very first race in Ferrari Challenge here in the UK. Now, I said to you about my bottom being attracted, and it's being attracted by Paul Simerson, who is making his way to the grid right now, trying to find his grid spot. The cars and drivers are somewhat light arriving on grid, but the first few rows, thankfully, are all in place now, so we can begin to take our time just a little bit. To my left-hand side right now, as we walk down the grid, is Jonathan Satchel. Now, Jonathan Satchel was a driver in the Ferrari Challenge UK last year, and he will be hoping for still further improvements. I mean, he's a driver that has really, really upped his game. To the right-hand side is Stuart Marston, and Stuart Marston, another driver, very much looking forward to what he will do on the course of this year, of course. And, of course, the grid is always very, very busy indeed. It's littered with people. So we keep Ezra here doing a great job going backwards with me. And I did see Andrea Bertolini on the grid, and here is Andrea Bertolini. I said we've got celebrities down here on the grid, a very, very top racing driver, Andrea Bertolini. Welcome to the UK. Welcome to Snetterton, sir. Isn't it lovely to see so many 488 Challenge Evo cars on the grid as the UK moves up yet a further notch?
Yeah, it's amazing, you know, always here in UK, circuit like Snetterton, really old school. I was here exactly 10 years ago. Yeah, it was a good memory. And yeah, it's always something really special. And then, like you say, to see many drivers, you really enjoy to drive at Snetterton.
And thing is, Andrea, anything involved in Ferrari, the prancing horse and the Italian passion, it lives through the cars, it lives through the people, it lives through the drivers. And I wax lyrical often about being involved with Ferrari, but we are like one huge family, Andrea.
Yeah, you know, Ferrari is a family all around the world. You know, we have this feeling, we feel the feeling in the racing weekend at home, so it's something difficult to describe, you know. But like today, you feel it that is a family.
Thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you.
Andrea Bertolini, who's here in Snetterton with us. Now, Marcus Vivian is another new driver. He's to my right-hand side on the grid here. Another new driver that's taking part in the Ferrari Challenge UK this year. We wish Marcus well, and a very understated livery, I have to say, with this kind of purple, mauve. I'm not really a good describer of colours, to be honest. In fact, I'm not very good at anything, as everyone will testify. So we wax lyrical about the cars and the beautiful imagery that they use on these cars. For example, I've got to give mention to Paul Rogers here, who, if you were watching our qualifying show, you will know that I said he had a yellow car for years and years and years. This year, he's upgraded the colors to purple and pink, and it's looking absolutely gorgeous, I have to say. And Paul did a very, very good job in qualifying and is going to be a danger man from where he sits on the grid as the very best Coppa Shell driver. Now, right alongside him is John Dillon. Now, John is doing a lot of racing at the moment, this in the number 61 car. John was racing in Misano last weekend, and I had the privilege of calling the races on TV in Misano. And I actually said that John Dillon deserved a podium, and through no fault of his own, he was kind of taken out of the race. And maybe he'll right the wrongs of yesterday or last weekend. Maybe he'll right those wrongs today. Will John Dillon be able to? Do you know what? At the risk of upsetting John, I'm going to grab a word with him here. John, forgive me. I know you. Last thing you need is me sticking a microphone up your trumpet here, but I was saying, John, you deserved a podium in Europe last weekend. Are you going to get a win or a podium here in the UK this weekend?
Yeah, I hope so, Dave. Yeah, forget about last weekend. We'll focus on this race. We get a good, clean start. Try and stay with the two at front, and yeah, bring it home. And hopefully, we get a podium. It'll be a good bonus.
You look really good in qualifying. You must be satisfied with your performance.
Yeah, it was good. I mean, it was a little bit scrappy, the quali. There was obviously a red flag, a couple of crashes, and it hampered a little bit. But now I'm all happy.
Good luck to you, John. Thank you so much for talking to us. John Dillon there in car number 61, going from the second row of the grid, which means we make our way right now to the front part of the grid, the real sharp end, if you like. And what a battle that was going on between these two drivers. Andrew Morrow and H. Sickins alongside then. Andrew Morrow in the gun seat, if you like, because he has got pole position. P1 Andrew Morrow, and Andrew's family here to enjoy his racing today. And he debuted in the Ferrari Challenge last year, and he set such a stall out because was so competitive right from the very, very start of the season. So Andrew Morrow, you can see a final sort of focus, if you like, ahead of the start of the race. And he's going to have real competition going into turn number one because he's got 8 seconds right alongside him, who's also very, very quick as well. And as you look behind me now, what a fantastic sight this is. All these wonderful Ferrari Challenge cars here who are ready to do battle. Of course, a 30-minute race as Ferrari Challenge UK season 2023 is about to get underway. Let's go to the Tower of Power right now with Adam Weller and the legendary Chris Hartley.
Thanks very much indeed, Dave. Yeah, well done sticking your microphone up people's trumpets. Fantastic. Getting the inside story down there on the grid, which is now being cleared. It is, to bring you news, going to be slightly different look to the grid because we've spotted while Dave was parading and up the grid and catching up with the drivers that number 5, as we've now said, he's become in the red car. Faisal Al-Faisal qualified 9th, but won't start on the 5th row of the grid, and probably sensibly because he's in a car which he's unfamiliar with. He's going to start at the back of the grid. So that's 1 place gain for Carl Cavers, who wasn't able to take part in qualifying and thought he was going to be starting stone last. And we think there's going to be no Robert Rees because he's not made it to the grid yet, and there is a gap where he should have been on the grid. So we think there's no number 13 Robert Rees, unfortunately. But everybody else there will confirm that when they come through, because the cars now with their fantastic new liveries for the season all lined up. Remember, in the 5th season now of the Ferrari Challenge UK, and the 30th anniversary season last year it was of the Ferrari Challenge as a concept racing all across Europe, all across the world. But this championship continuing to grow and grow. Split into 2 classes, everybody in the same car, but you've got the Trofeo Pirelli drivers and then the drivers with perhaps a little bit less experience in the Coppa Shell category, but it's equally competitive. And quite often the quick Coppa Shell drivers you'll find running at or near the front of the field, but they all compete for different trophies. We have 2 sets of podiums for the 2 different sets of drivers. They qualify for different championship points as well. And the 2 drivers that managed to get pole position within their own classes, the overall pole sitter Andrew Morrow in car number 4, and as I said, the quickest driver in the Coppa Shell category, Paul Rogers, have already scored a championship point for qualifying their cars on their respective pole positions. So 10 rounds of this year's championship. Round 1 today, round 2 tomorrow, then we're off to Alton Park, Brands Hatch, Silverstone and the wonderful Spa-Francorchamps later on in the season. Qualifying 1 sets the grid for race 1. We'll have another qualifying session tomorrow to set the grid for race 2. It's 15 points for a race win in each class, 12 points for second, 10 for third, down to 1 point for eighth. You get a point, as I say, for pole position. You get a point for entering the round for everybody that's here, and you also get a point for the fastest lap of the race. So there you can see the cars now all heading off the grid, and one last chance for a few minutes for the drivers to get their heads into gear and just focus on the big task ahead, with 30 minutes of racing coming up, and the drivers with a little bit of a wait to get out there, but they'll be raring to go for this first round of the season. And let's see if this is going to be a cracker. I think it is going to be a fantastic race. So the cars now off onto the formation lap as we look forward to race 1. So Ferrari Challenge Round 1 2023 about to get underway, and this is how the grid will shape up. Andrew Morrow on pole position. H. Sickins starts alongside him. They drive for Charles Hurst and H.R. Owen respectively. John Dillon qualifying third. He'll be one to watch here. And the best of the Coppa Shell drivers, Paul Rogers, who was second in that championship last year for JCT 600. 4th place for him. And then it's Marcus Vivian and Paul Simerson. Paul, who was third in the Coppa Shell Championship last year. Marcus making his debut. Row 4, we've got Stuart Marston, who saved his tyres for this, and Jonathan Satchell, who was on the podium in one of the races here last year. Then to complete the top 10, it should have been Faisal Faisal, but he's opted to start at the back of the grid. Paul Hogarth, who's been in the championship for a long time now, since the start of its inception 5 years ago, switched to Coppa Shell, and behind him we've got Chris Smith and Julian Dye on row 6, and both of those drivers making their debut in Ferrari Challenge today, as are Peter Hunter, who starts 13th, and the Ghanaian driver William Tuaya, who starts 14th. And then we're going to have Robert Rees, but he's actually going to start from the pit lane. We've spotted him underneath the commentary box. Graham Dizil, who was involved in one of the incidents in qualifying, starts 16th. Another quick driver to watch coming through. Carl Cavus is going to start 17th. And we say Faisal Faisal will now be behind him, and in a white car, an all-white car, but still running number 13, making his debut. Robert Rees is going to start this race from the end of the pit lane. So out of the cars now making their way around. And as you spotted in qualifying this morning, it's a lap where you have to compromise the setup really, because there are quick sections. You need a car that's set up for good traction, good braking through the middle part of the course. But really, the key to this lap seems to be the last part of the lap, which is where they're going through now ahead of the rolling start.
Yes, it's not even just setup, it's also just a matter of experience and confidence in the car. Some of whom out there on circuit, some of the drivers have more confidence and experience than others. And I think this circuit, particularly that final sector, is somewhere where that shows immensely. They're in 2x2 formation, though. They're coming onto the centre straight. We're about to go racing.
We are indeed. So it is safety car peeling in. No overtaking till they get to the start-finish line, but a rolling start ready for round 1 of the championship. 30 minutes of action about to get underway. Here they come then, up the centre straight, raring to go, and they're about to thunder into life. Here they come as the 2023 season gets underway. Over the line they charge. It's a good start for H. Sickins. He's side by side with Andrew Morrow for the lead of the race. Andrew slightly behind, but he's got the line going into Rich's corner. They're still going to be side by side. There's a good battle for third, as well as Paul Rogers is trying to go around the outside of John Dillon. They head now towards the hairpin. It is going to be Andrew Morrow that leads. He blocks the inside line, but what about behind? Paul Rogers has got himself up to third place. So the leading Coppa Shell driver with a terrific start moves ahead of John Dillon. Everybody else safely through the hairpin behind, and we've got to keep an eye on the progress of the red number 51 Ferrari with the luminous yellow trim starting at the back of the field, because Carl Cavers is surely going to come storming through as they head down towards Agostini for the first time in the race now, Adam.
Yes, they head towards one of the key braking zones then on this circuit. I noticed that Paul Hogarth fell down a few positions going wide at the Wilson hairpin, turn number 2 on the first time of asking. But what a start it has been then from the driver of the 20. But up the inside goes John Dillon in the 61 car to reclaim third position. So Paul Rogers, the leader among the Coppa Shell contingent, briefly up there in the overall top 3. But John Dillon executes a nice pass at Oggies.
And behind, at the same corner, trying exactly the same move, was Carl Cavers, and it almost paid off, but not quite. But he'd already overtaken 6 cars by that point. So Carl Cavers charging up the order. I'm sure he's going to get some more positions at the end of this straight, as we look at Paul Rogers trying to defend his position here from Marcus Vivian and Paul Simerson. These are the top 3 in the Coppa Shell category. So John Dillon, having dropped behind Paul Rogers in the first couple of corners of the race, has got himself back up into the top 3. The next 3, 4th, 5th and 6th, led by number 20 Paul Rogers in the purple and pink car. They are the top 3 in Coppa Shell. And Paul Simerson, look, has made a good start, hasn't he, the 77 car, coming back through at the end of this lap. About to head over the start-finish line to lead the first lap of the 2023 Championship, though, goes Andrew Morrow, number 4, already pulling away now from H. Siggins. John Dillon in 3rd place, and Paul Rogers has had a really good run coming onto the centre straight. But what about Paul Simerson? He has a lurk up the inside here on the way to Riches, trying to find a way past Marcus Vivian's at number 28 car, but he wasn't quite close enough, Adam.
And behind that, I think Carl Cavers got past the 15 of Marston as well, so Stuart Marston potentially losing a position there. Yes, indeed. No, not quite, actually, as a matter of fact. Marston was being investigated thoroughly up the inside at Ritchie's by our back row starter, Carl Cavers. Of course, didn't manage to take part in the qualifying session, so he is on a mission. Cavers, who's been in the top 3 all day long until that quali session, is now passed by the looks of it. Marston in the 15. Running wide there is Simerson in the 77, so that's another position for Cavers. And now Marston's looking up the inside of Simerson in the 77 car, and Stuart Marston manages to get past at Hamilton.
Yeah, he's just about, I think, going to fend off Paul Hogarth, or is he? No, Paul has to think about it, but backs off in the green and black number 6 car. So, yeah, he got that wrong at Agostini, Paul Simerson. That's cost him a couple of places. But absolute charging through the order is Carl Cavers. He's gained one through sheer determination down into Agostini, and then he was gifted one on the way out of the corner. He started the lap in 8th place. He's up into the top 6 now, as here comes Paul Hogarth down the Bentley straight, and the black and green number 6 car side by side with Paul Simerson. Down the inside he goes, and Paul is just a little bit on the back foot at the moment. He'll gather his thoughts and get back into the groove, and I'm sure Paul Simerson will come back, but it's been a bit of an unfortunate lap for him. So Hogarth making a decent start to this race, having not qualified in the top 10, which is where he would have, I think, expected to. And car running wide there on the way out of the bomb hole as well, which you saw in the background, which is unfortunately Faisal Al-Faisal, isn't it, the number 76 car. He did manage to change the number on that car a few minutes before the race. He's got 5 on it, but it is a different car that he's racing, that he was qualifying in. Unfamiliar with the car, of course, it can be difficult to go straight into a race with it. So he was the one on the grass. And here comes Carl Cavers now, right in the case of Marcus Vivian. This is not for class position. The next 2 cars ahead of him, Vivian and then Rogers, he can overtake them. He won't get him any more points because he's a Trofeo Pirelli driver. Carl Cavers, number 51, and the 2 ahead of him are both in the Coppa Shell class. He's got a terrific run then, going in towards the left-hander at Palmer. He won't overtake here, but you can bet your bottom dollar he is lining up a move, ready to pounce when they get down to Agostini. He's within a car length now, and he'll look for the inside. Here we go. Carl Cavers shows his nose, but Marcus Vivian is good enough on the brakes to keep him at bay. And the higher up the order you get, Adam, the harder it becomes to overtake.
Yeah, absolutely right. Also, as the pack strings out and people are no longer focusing on not tripping over each other, we're now at a point where Vivian is able to focus on taking his line and defending, so it only gets harder as the laps go on. It only gets harder as you get further towards the sharp end of the Coppa Shell class. And of course, for Carl Cavers, he needs to get through the Coppa Shell drivers to make up any points in Trofeo Pirelli. As you alluded to before, we've got the long Bentley straight. Coming up next is Brundle and Nelson. Surely an opportunity awaits for Cavers.
Yeah, here we go. He's drawn alongside. He's got the line. He should be able to squeeze through here. And Carl Cavers goes ahead of Marcus Vivian. That puts him into 5th place. And we've got leaving the pit lane now. Being back into the pits in the spare car that is running number 13. Going back out, I'm afraid, Robert Rees. So becoming a bit of a test session this for him. From the Coppa Shell driver's point of view, there's no real point trying to fend off Carl Cavers because then their race is not really with him. Although, try telling a racing driver that he should just let somebody through, and it doesn't quite work like that. Now, Andrew Morrow set the new fastest lap of the race, a 1 minute 53.712 for the race leader, and a 1:55.2 for Sickins, so a second and a half quicker on that lap, and already Andrew Morrow is 3.7 seconds to the good. There is Andrew, go through the Wilson hairpin now. and at the moment he's in a class of his own. But you've got to look after the tyres. It's a pretty long race, only get 8 new slick tyres to run through both qualifyings and both races, and with the warmer temperatures, tyre management might be something they have to think about as the weekend goes on. But for now, he looks like he's on a pair of rails, Adam.
Yes, he really does. That car looks very well sorted indeed. We were talking about Robert Rees back into the pits. I'm afraid to say that Faisal has also returned to the pits after his off-track excursion that we picked up on camera a few minutes ago. So both drivers who have taken the T cars, to borrow some old Formula One jargon, unfortunately struggling at the moment, but it's good for them to at least get out there and be involved in the race in spite of their original cars not being able to take the start. So then, Morrow it is in the lead, and just spotted something off camera there, I believe, Chris.
Carl Cavers lunging down the inside at Williams to gain a place. That was on Paul Rogers. So Carl Cavers on the way towards the Bentley Straight, just going through that last corner before the Bentley Straight. Williams has gone through, dived at the inside with a very brave move to get himself ahead of Paul Rogers. And this is Paul Hogarth versus Stuart Marston. Paul in the green and black number 6 car. The Stratstone Manchester back driver sweeps through, sweeps past, and that puts him into 7th place. So qualifying wasn't quite what he wanted. The race is good, but he has to take to the curbs to get at the inside to keep Stuart Marston behind him, and that then gifts a place to against him right behind him, Paul Simerson. He's a great bit of opportunism there to get ahead of Stuart Marston. So I told you Paul Simerson was quick enough to be able to come back from that disappointing lap he had early on in the race, and he's certainly doing that. And these two are well worth watching, 6 and 77, because they're starting to charge through the order, working together. So Andrew Morrow, number 4, leads by 5.6 seconds already after 4 laps of racing. 8 seconds number 16 is second, 61 John Brilliant is third, and 4th place Carl Cavers, who has just, of course, set his personal best lap of the race with the 1:55.3, because it's the first time in the race, really, Adam, that he's had a clear track in front of him. He cannot match the pace of the overall race. He's got even quicker now, hasn't he?
Yes, although I would say he was only really in a clear track for half a lap, so we'll see whether or not Cavers can now try and put the hammer down. Certainly a contender for overall podium honours here. We look at Faisal's second car, which is still in the pit lane. Looks like they might be sending that car back out, which would be good for Faisal to get some more laps in. Meanwhile, Hogarth still under pressure then from Paul Simerson. Simerson, who's on the recovery drive, of course. I mentioned it in the qualifying show a little earlier on. The Pauls often do end up fighting, be it Hogarth and Simerson, Simerson and Rogers, or all three. And sure enough, once again, they found each other, not just, of course, in a battle for 7th overall, but also for the 3rd and final podium spot within Coppa Shell.
There's also been a change in Coppa Shell, because Paul Rogers had a bad lap last time around. He lost it at the best part of 2 seconds, and the number 20 car is now down to 6th place behind number 28, Marcus Vivian. So Marcus Vivian, on his debut, is the Coppa Shell leader, and leads now by around about half a second or so from number 24, Rogers. They're 5th and 6th, and then you've got these two going at it, hammer and tongs. That was late on the brakes, wasn't it, from Paul Simerson, who thought about a move on the way through Brundle and Nelson, but he was just that bit too far back, so he goes through the undulations there of the Bommel and into this super quick right-hander at Coram Curve down towards Murray's. This the battle to watch then at the moment between Hogarth and Simerson. 7th and 8th, black and green number 6 car is just in front at the moment, trying not to understeer wide on the exit to the corner, but he gets the power down well, heads over the grid hatchins and leads Simerson. But this is for the final podium position in the Coppa Shell category. I think he's got just enough in hand here to be able to keep them at bay. But the one to watch now is a couple of cars behind these, because another one coming from the back of the field is Graham DeZille in the number 19 car in the Trofeo Pirelli category. He's almost latched himself onto the back of this to become a quartet. So you got these two, then you got Stuart Marston, then there he is, number 19, the red car with the yellow flashes on it, and he's absolutely charging after them now. His last lap was his best of the session, 1:55.8 there in the 1:56s and 1:57s. So I think by the end of this lap, he might be even ahead of a couple of these drivers, Adam.
And one interesting element as well in this battle is the car directly ahead of Paul Hogarth. That is Robert Rees in the white number 13. Of course, he is out of the pit lane. He's over a lap down at this stage. And when you've got a 4-car train coming up behind you, that is never a comfortable position, nor is it an easy one to actually manage properly. So for Robert Rees, lest we forget, in his first weekend in Ferrari Challenge UK, he has quite the task coming up behind him in the rear view mirrors. And, well, I'm sure that Paul Hogarth will be hoping that his race isn't unduly affected.
Just an update on Carl Caver's personal best lap, 1:54.6, more than half a second quicker than John Dillon, so he's got the gap down to less than 2 seconds. And Stuart Marston going to lose the place because Graham Dazil just thunders around the outside of him down the Bentley Straight. As I say, they're in different categories, but nonetheless, that is Graham Dazil now up another position from the back of the field and into 9th place. He's already beginning to leave Stuart behind him. They go past the number 13 car, Robert Rees, as you say. It looks like he might be either staying out of the way or potentially headed back to the pits. But Graham Dazil's next target now is going to be another Coppa Shell car, and it's going to be onto the back of this battle between Hogarth and Simerson as over the line. Paul Rogers flashing the lights, trying to get back now at the class leader, Marcus Vivian. He's got the gap down to just over half a second, and Paul Simerson on the attack here, Adam.
Yeah, Simerson looking to the inside as they go through Ritchie's, and that 77 car always looking lively for Simerson, especially when he's in the midst of battle. He goes wide there, coming out of Ritchie's towards Wilson. Then he will have slightly dirty left-hand side tyres, and thankfully does get the car stopped and rotated properly. Approaching Palmer and Agostini then. Let's see if Simerson can set himself up for a good run through the Palmer bend. I think he's going to be a bit too far back from Hogarth to challenge into Agostini, but there are reasons. I'm not a racing driver. Maybe he sees it differently. Certainly has a little look to the inside, doesn't he? He brakes with purpose. He's very brave on the brake pedal, but no position made yet for Simerson.
Now, next battle to watch. He's about to go onto the Bentley Straight for second place because John Dillon is being reeled in by Carl Cavers. The battle for third is on. Number 61 Dillon has got now the 51 car within about 6-7 tenths of a second of him, and he's catching quickly. So they're heading down towards the end of the Bentley Straight as this battle makes its way onto the Bentley Straight. But I think at the end of this lap, Carl Cavers is going to be right on the case of John Dillon. See Andrew Morrow, the race leader, coming through Coram Curve now in a world of his own, a class of his own. Terrific drive this from the Northern Irish driver. But what about his battle for third? It's almost there now. Carl Cavers coming into Coram Curve within a car length or so, heading towards the last corner at Murray's. That battle for third place on this next lap. We're going to have a real ding-dong for third place here, as we're also going to have a battle for the Coppa Shell because the number 20 car of a man from last year, runner-up in the championship, Paul Rogers, he's right back with Marcus Vivian. So battle for third, a battle for fifth, and two really important battles in the context of the race.
Yeah, Rogers has been making life difficult for Marcus Vivian for the last couple of laps now. He's just kind of staying behind him rather than challenging at the moment, but that's definitely not the case for Carl Cavers, who we see at the moment right on the back of John Dillon coming out of the Wilson hairpin. The gap just under half a second between them at the last split, and Cavers will be hoping for the opportunity, potentially even into Agostini, if he can get the run. Certainly did get a decent launch there out of Palmer, runs down the not quite straight then behind the paddock, and not quite able to make a move yet, but he's going to be sniffing any opportunity. Of course, a huge opportunity coming up with the slipstream down the Bentley Straight and towards Brundle and Nelson.
Yeah, he got the gap down from 8 tenths per second to, as you say, just under half a second on that lap, and he's closed it still further as he goes into Oggie's, a much tighter line. He's able to get the power down early as well on the way out of the corner. He's trying to line up an attack down the Bentley Straight. He gets to within half a car length now of the third place car as they go almost nose to tail into the Bentley Straight. He slingshots now underneath the rear wing of John Dillon. Dillon knows what's coming, but can he defend from Carl Cavers, who's lining up a dive down the inside here as they go underneath the bridge? But John Dillon, who's a wily racer, very good on the brakes. He positions the car in just the right spot, and even though he was second favourite to get there, he stays ahead, but he's a bit wide on the exit. Coming out of Nelson, put a couple of wheels on the grass, on the curbs. It was a bit untidy, but he's still just about ahead of Carl Cavers as the battle for third now comes through Coram down towards Murray's. And is there going to be a dive here? Probably not, I think, from Carl Cavers. But this is a terrific battle going on between the pair of them now. And Carl, if he can get past John Dillon, still time enough in the race for him to perhaps have to go for second place here. So he'll be keen to dispatch with the number 61 car as quickly as possible. He looks again for the inside line going into Ritchie's, but he was a little bit too far back coming onto the centre straight. Down into the hairpin, though, is where it might all kick off, Adam.
Could well do. Cavers with a very good run indeed. Dillon is going very, very defensive at every opportunity he can. Cavers around the outside, tries to get the run now out of Wilson, but not quite able to do it. John Dillon's really placing the car exactly where he needs to here to hold on to this third place. Great battle this for third overall, and of course third in the Trofeo Pirelli categorization. Let's see if Cavers is close enough this time then into Agostini Bend. No move made there. While these guys stay somewhat in the same order, I'll quickly let you know as well that we've had Graham DeZille move up another position as he picks his way up through the Coppa shell runners from the back end of the grid. He is now up to 8th overall.
Yes, he is indeed, as this is where Carl Cavers was really quick last time on the way through this right-hand sequence at Oggies into Williams, but he's got to get within less than a car length here and get a tidy exit, and then he'll pick up a bit of a toe as well, and we know they're both very good on the brakes, so John Dillon is now knowing he's going to have to defend. The longer it goes on, the more he knows what's coming. But Carl Cavers goes on the attack. He's a bit closer this time. I think he might be through. Side by side, under the bridge they go. Last of the late breakers, and Carl Cavers goes through on the back of the field into a podium-paying position. Absolutely terrific drive this from Carl. And you know what? He's still got just under half the race distance to go. Good second place beyond the cards.
I was going to say I wouldn't be willing to bet that that's all he does before the end of this race. He's going to be about 6 seconds, I believe, up down the road from H. Sickens in second place this time by, and that could be doable for Carl Cavers, who has been on rich form so far in this race. Crosses the line now. Let's see what the interval is. It's 6.3 seconds, so it's going to be a difficult task, I grant you that, but certainly not impossible for Carl Cavers to move beyond the third place step on that podium.
Carl overtook John Dillon more than halfway around that lap. By the time he got to the end of the lap, he was 1.2 seconds ahead of him. Absolutely terrific stuff as Graham DeZille slingshots one up the inside into Rich's corner. Oh, there's contact between him and Paul Hogarth, and spinning to the inside onto the grass goes the number 19 car of Graham DeZille. I can see why he went for the move, but what he didn't think was that Paul Hogarth was going to be quite so late on the brakes as he was. Two didn't fit into one, and unfortunately one of them had to come unstuck, and it was Graham DeZille, who's had a pretty torrid day, but up until that point, because it was a really good drive back through the order, I don't think there'll be too much in the way of serious damage to Paul Hogarth's car, so he carries on without too many cares in the world, but because Graham DeZille's dropped all the way down the field as a result of that. He has got back on track though, as you can see. So Paul Hogarth, who would have had that contact on the right-hand side of his car, would of course now slip back into the clutches of Simerson. Here's a replay of this move then, and so it was a fair attempt, wasn't it, to have a go. Neither of them wanted to concede. Paul wasn't necessarily expecting Graham to attack there, and unfortunately the two came together, and Graham was the one that ended up going backwards onto the grass. So Andrew Morrow now leads by 6.2 seconds. He's still there. He's just miles in front of everybody else, having a race of his own, really. H. Sickens, number 16, is second. 6.3 seconds behind him, almost equidistant, is the new third place car of number 51, Carl Cavers. Then it's number 61, John Dillon, in fourth. Number 28, Marcus Vivian, is the Coppa Shell class leader in fifth place, but he's only 0.8 of a second clear of the sixth place, number 20 car of Paul Rogers, which is second in Coppa Shell. Third in Coppa Shell is the car we've just been seeing having all that action at Ritchie's, number 6, Paul Hogarth. So different classes, those two cars, but Hogarth, of course, was in the same class as DeZille last year, so they're well versed in racing wheel to wheel, those two. They know each other well.
Yes, they do, and I think Hogarth really did a good job there to just keep the car straight and on the tarmac after that contact with DeZille. He so easily could have been tipped into a spin as well, but he continues on in 7th overall and 3rd in Coppa Shell, unabated by that contact we saw at Ritchie's. 10 minutes and 15 seconds left to go then, and the gap has already gone down significantly by over a second between Sickens and Cavers in the battle for second place. That gap is down to 5.2 seconds from 6.4. A much closer interval, though, is in this lead battle for Coppa Shell honours.
Yeah, worth bearing in mind as well that because Carl Cavers couldn't go out for qualifying, of course, he's got fresher tyres than everybody else. So, you know, he's not going to run out of tyres later on in this race either. That coupled together with me, a very quick driver, and there's an opportunity now for a change of the Coppa Shell lead coming together between the top two. Paul Rogers and Marcus Vivian come together on the way out of Agostini. Big damage to both cars, particularly to the front lug of Paul Rogers' car. Also, I think, hit the barrier. There's a huge amount of damage and debris on the circuit, and the red flags are going to come out and stop the race with just under 9.5 minutes on the clock. a huge battle. As Marcus Vivian that just was a little bit slow, wasn't he, on the exit to Agostini. Paul Rogers saw the opportunity to pounce, came on the throttle, got up the inside, got alongside, got his nose maybe slightly in front, and it wasn't a huge contact, side-on contact between them as Marcus came across to try and take his line, but there was Paul Rogers, and unfortunately then Paul was sent spearing across and into the barrier, but it's good to see the driver out of the car there and looking absolutely fine. Speaking to the marshal, marshals, of course, our volunteer marshals doing, as ever, a terrific job for us here at Snetterton. They're the eyes and ears of race control, looking after the safety of the drivers, and they were straight on the scene to check that drivers were okay. So the red flag's out, 9.5 minutes left on the clock. You have to get 75% race distance for it to count as a full points race. So I suspect we hopefully are going to get regridded and get the race back underway. But of course we'll wait for the officials to make that decision. But for now, all but one car have made their way to the pit. So Andrew Morrow has gone back onto the grid. He's going to be joined by a couple more now, by Stuart Marston as well. But they'll all be told what to do in due course. Right, let's have a replay, some different angles of this coming together. And yeah, as they hit side by side, the impact sent Paul Rogers oversteering across the front, really, of the number 28 car. And he was the one that took the biggest hit because it's a very narrow strip of grass there on the exit to Agostini, and very little in the way of runoff at that point of the course. And that car then nosed into the barrier at high speed. But these cars are built incredibly strongly. All the safety equipment inside the roll cages, and the drivers, of course, wearing all their protective gear. And that is exactly why, because it serves its purpose and protects the driver, even in an impact like that.
Yeah, absolutely, and the car completely did its job there. You saw how much of the front end was immediately almost ripped off, but that, of course, absorbs the impact. That's exactly what these cars are designed to do. So yes, in every single sense, the 488 Challenge Evo did exactly what it was supposed to do there. I think Paul Rogers, more than anything, I think he thought he was all the way past in that one, and they unfortunately met in the middle. But just good to see him out of the car. Obviously, that's everyone's main priority at the moment. And yes, a dramatic conclusion and an unfortunate conclusion to what was an exciting looking battle for that Coppa Shell lead.
Absolutely right. So with those two out of the running, the driver that was third in the category, the Coppa Shell category, was Paul Hogarth, so he would have picked up the lead. But the way it'll work now with the red flag, just waiting for the confirmation that this is going to happen, but if we get the restart underway, it will count back a lap, so the last complete lap before the red flags will be the order in which they'll start the restart. It, of course, won't affect the front runners in terms of their positions. It will still be Morrow, Sickins, Cavers and Dillon, the top four, but we lost from that incident the 5th and 6th place drivers, Marcus Vivian and Paul Rogers, and again, hopefully they are both absolutely fine and well, and they will, of course, then drop out of this. So Paul Hogarth, Paul Simerson and Stuart Marston would become the new top three in the Coppa Shell category. Now, also to point out to you that, of course, if they're going to restart this, we are no longer going to have a big gap between H. Sickins, who was second, and Carl Cavers, who was third, and we're not even going to have a big gap between Andrew Morrow, who just left everybody behind. So if you're Carl Cavers, you're rubbing your hands together now, thinking, if we get a restart here, and if I can get past Sickins quickly, I might even have a chance of going for a race win here. The slight problem being the fact that Andrew Morrow is massively quick, the race leader.
Yes, no, Morrow still, based on the pace he's set in this race, it would be a brave person to suggest he's not got the biggest chance of taking that checkered flag, but certainly Cavers, in the event of a restart, being brought back in to that now three-way scrap for the lead, would be a very exciting prospect. Cavers, very full program of racing commitments this year in the UK and in mainland Europe, so certainly more than likely the driver of the three with his eye in the most when it comes to on-track battling. I would be most curious to see how he approaches it if we do get that restart.
There we're looking at number 23, William Twire, making his debut in the Ferrari Challenge UK, but as you were saying this morning, Adam, Williams, a driver that's not completely new to racing, is he? So he brings some experience with him, the Ghanaian driver.
Yes, absolutely. Has largely driven at kind of GT4-ish level cars to this point, moving into the Ferrari 488 Challenge Evo 670 horsepower, 661 brake horsepower in these cars. And of course, mid-engined as well. It's a big challenge and a big step up for William versus what he has been driving previously. And he is, by all accounts, adapting quite nicely. He had a little bit of an incident in quali, but he's been strong in the race so far.
And then we can see Andrew Morrow with the self-air conditioning system as he flaps the door open to get a bit of air in there. And down there on the grid and in the pit lane to bring us up to speed with what's happening during this red flag. Let's hand back down to Dave Richardson.
Thank you so much, Chris. Obviously, one of those situations that you never want to see. What I can tell you is, and I've been working really, really hard. Excuse me, I've been running. And that is to let you know that Paul is definitely okay. He's out of the car. And that's the point I really want to make. And it's the integral safety of the 488 Challenge Evo cars. They are such a strong racing car, and of course that is so important because, you know, we don't want to see things like that. It happens. It's motor racing, of course it happens. But the 488 Challenge Evo is such a strong car, and thankfully I am being told that Paul is absolutely okay. Try and grab someone to speak to you for the moment. Back to you guys.
Thank you for that update, Dave, and great to get confirmation there that Paul Rogers is A-OK after that very large impact down on the approach to Hamilton, and absolutely right. One has to commend the strength and safety of our Ferrari 488 Challenge Evo machines. Absolutely zero half measures when it comes to the safety of our competitors, and great to see someone walking away from that kind of incident. So we continue to await news as to when this race will get back underway, but hopeful we'll get that going soon, Chris.
Absolutely right. Well, a dramatic start to the race. There was a lot of action, wasn't there? Some great overtakes in the first part of the race. Let's have a look at the highlights so far. This was the start, and this was one of the great moves that we saw with Paul Rogers being involved early on, that battle that he was having with Marcus Vivian. New drivers getting to grips with these cars. One or two drivers running slightly wide. Paul Simerson in the thick of the action. Made a good start to the race. We had a trip across the grass for Faisal Al-Faisal in his spare car for the day, as Andrew Morrow set off into the distance. Further back, we had some terrific battles. Good move there from Paul Hogarth to get ahead of Stuart Marston. Paul Simerson followed him, and they were battling for the final podium position as it was at the point in the Coppa Shell category. And then Simerson and Hogarth had a real nose-to-tail battle for a number of laps. Carl Cavers charging from the back of the field. Graham DeZille charging from the back of the field, but coming together with Paul Hogarth when he was pushing inside the top six, and then the big coming together which brought about the red flag that we now have, and another replay of that very high-speed incident on the way out of Agostini involving Paul Rogers and Marcus Vivian. So there you can see the driver there to the left is Paul Simerson, who was very much involved in that podium battle, wasn't he? And drivers now having a bit of a debrief amongst themselves as to what's happened and any news from their point of view and how their race has been so far. But it's difficult, this, for the drivers, because they are having to, of course, get out of race mode, and they'll have to get back into it at some point. Today, though, I think it's got some news from us. Let's catch up in now, back down in the pit lane.
Thanks, Chris. As always, it's kind of difficult trying to get people to talk to in situations like this, because drivers in stages of wanting to go racing again. When are we going to go racing again? Lots and lots of questions. Fulvio Musi, who has been kind enough to spare just a little bit of time with us here. Obviously, you know, motor racing, crashes happen, things happen. When you've got a car like the 488 Challenge Evo, and you know, we saw the impact. I mean, it's really good that I'm being told by Sean that Paul is perfectly okay.
Yeah, as you say, really good to hear that the driver's both okay. As you say, motorsport is dangerous. I think it says on the back of the ticket when you come into the venue. But Ferrari built a fantastic car. These aren't standard road cars. These are built at the factory as race cars. Full safety cages, harnesses, all the safety elements that you require to go racing like this. And they are really solid bits of kit, to be fair. I mean, that was a huge impact there. As you thankfully said, Paul is all right. So, yeah, really glad to hear that.
Thanks so much for talking to us, as always. Really, really appreciated. I did see Jason Ambrose walking around just a few moments ago. You may recall he, of course, was a champion driver from last year. And if I could see him, I would. Come on, Ez. We've got a couple of moments. I'm sure Chris won't mind, and let's see if I can find him and grab a quick word with him. Because, as I say, he made his debut in the Ferrari Challenge last year and became the Coppa Shell champion his first year of competition. And rather typically, he has disappeared, and I can't see him. I'm looking in all the garages here. Isn't it typical? Just when you want someone. Ah, there he is. Let's see if I can entice him out here. The man I'm talking about is Jason Ambrose, who he's going to be furious with me because I promised that I wouldn't speak to him this weekend because he's not racing. He wishes he was, but he's not racing, and he's got a mouth full of chocolate at the moment. Jason Ambrose, we were just talking about drivers in the Ferrari Challenge. Of course, you made your debut in the Ferrari Challenge last year and ended the year as a champion.
I did. I'm more concerned for poor Paul at the moment, to be honest.
Sean tells me that he's perfectly all right.
Yeah, one of these, being all right is fine, but it's just a big expense, and it's all the things that come with your family that worry about you and all the rest of it. So, yeah, just worried. I just want to see poor Paul.
I understand that. I've got to ask you, and you'll forgive me for it, I'm sure, Jason, whilst it's lovely to see you standing here, why aren't you sitting in a racing car, my friend? Because that's where we'd like to see you.
Well, I'm a bit of a sick note, as most people know, but no, I've had a bit of a back injury and I've got a bit of a jaw injury, but as soon as they're done, I'll be back.
The jaw injury doubtless brought about by the amount of stick you gave me last season.
Stick and jaws are two things you should probably leave away from this conversation, but maybe another time, Dave, if you like.
Jason Ambrose, Coppa Shell champion last year. Thank you for talking to me. JJ, thanks for allowing that, because he's the boss, really, you know. Yeah, Jason, who came into the Coppa Shell last year and ended up being champion in 2022, which was brilliant for him, of course, and we're hoping to see him back racing again, as he says, not racing at the moment because of an injury. So let's see who else we can grab here, and if we can, we will. If we can't, we won't. It's as simple as that. Paul Hogarth is here, and Paul is always a real gentleman, always speaks to me, just when he would really rather not, I'm sure. Paul, just by looking at your face, handsome as it is, it's hot out there. It's been a turbulent race so far.
It sure has. My goodness. Didn't obviously have a great position to start the race, but it kind of opened up a little bit for me, which was good. But yeah, there's a lot going on out there. Yeah, it's a lot going on. That was a nasty crash.
It was. The information that I have is that Paul is okay, but that's only the information that I have. I want to tell you that.
Yeah, I'm sure he's fine. I mean, what I meant just more mechanical with the car and stuff. But no, it's very busy, and we've got to do it all again, haven't we?
Yeah, I think there's still some time left on the clock, Mr. Hogarth.
How much? How much?
Well, listen, well done for what you're doing, and thank you for talking to me. It's really appreciated. So that's really kind of Paul Hogarth to speak to me. I'm going to try and grab John Dillon as well, who's here, and he's out of the car. He'll probably tell me to go away, but he'll be very polite in telling me to go away. I'm sure, John, my goodness me, that's so hectic out there. And, of course, you're racing and doing really, really well. My goodness me. And the temperatures here at Snetterton as well. I mean, you're a fit fella and you're sweating.
I'm always sweating, Dave. But, yeah, that was difficult. A couple of guys at the front just a bit quicker. Didn't have a great start. But Paul Rogers obviously took me on the outside, turn one. And then, you know, I got him back, but hands had gone into the distance a little bit. And then it's a bit difficult, especially if you're matching the same pace. But yeah, you know, we've got a restart coming, I think. So let's give it another go.
We wish you well, John, and as always, thank you for talking to us. It's really, really appreciated. For the moment, Adam and Chris, that's kind of as much as I can bring you. If there's anything else breaking down here, of course, you'll be the very first to know.
You're a star man, Dave. Thanks very much indeed. Yeah, really nice to hear from Paul Hogarth there, who had a really good race, didn't he? And although he had that wheel-to-wheel battle and coming together, which ended in Graham DeZille going on the RAS, of course, with the top two coming together, he effectively will become the Coppa Shell category leader. But yeah, he started to make his way through well from outside the top 10. Just inside the top 10, 10th on the grid he was, and then has made his way up to 7th. That will become 5th, I'm pretty sure, on the restart. We heard from Fabio Mussi as well, who's his driver coach, and I must say, sporting a new moustache, which suits him very well. Not everybody can pull a moustache off, but Fulvio's done a grand job there. Looks like a 1930s movie star, if you don't mind me saying. So, very good driver coach there, who's done a great job with Paul Hogarth. There's another driver that's got better and better in his time in the Ferrari Challenge since he came in a few years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. It had been a few years on the bench in racing terms for Paul before he came back into racing for the Ferrari Challenge UK, and he has been impressive every season, always a contender. I think particularly this year, now in Coppa Shell, Paul Hogarth is going to be a force to be reckoned with, and I understand that Dave has more news from us down in the pits.
We set ourselves a bit of a task in terms of finding one of the new drivers on the grid. And Julian, thank you so much for talking to us in sort of a suspended race here. I'm tempted to say to you, welcome to the Ferrari Challenge. Something of a baptism of fire, Julian.
I think it was a massive baptism of fire. I think it's Paul Rogers over the far side. The car is absolutely in a big mess. That is something to make you focus, that you can't mess with these cars. You've got to be on it and you've got to be concentrating, and it's just, a massive baptism.
But in fairness, Julian, you know, when you're putting yourself in a racing car, you know, isn't it reassuring to know that it's such a strong car and such a safe car relative to an impact like that, and you can walk away from it?
Oh, absolutely. No, he was stood over the other side, like waved, making sure he was all right. Yeah. No, it gives you super confidence when you're strapped in there, the cage, everything's there. Yeah. But yes, it's been a baptism of fire.
Me and you have got a cup of tea waiting at the end of the race, Julian. Thank you so much for talking to us. Of course, they will be getting back into the cars. Another one of our new drivers is here, of course, in car number 23, which is this lovely car here. And he'll be jumping back in the car momentarily. And that is William. There we are. And just while we've got a moment, Ayres, let's take a look at this car here, because, again, it's a lovely combination of colours in terms of the black and the red and the yellow as well. I was hoping that William might appear right by the car, but for the moment he hasn't. Perhaps he's gone for something of a comfort break. Oh, here he comes. William making his way down the pit lane. I think he's heard me talking about him, which has meant that he's taken something of a circuitous route to avoid me. William, how dare you? New to the Ferrari Challenge. He'll come in now and talk to me, I'm sure. William, I'm tempted to say welcome to the Ferrari Challenge. It's been something of a buoyant race, has it not?
It has been, yeah. It's been interesting, yeah. But we're still on there, so let's hope.
Good luck to you, and thanks for talking to us. William, who tried his level best, honestly, he's like taking the M25 way round the pit lane so as not to talk to me. On that note, I think I've brought you pretty much all I can, Chris and Adam.
Thanks very much indeed. Right, news to bring you. First of all, we've got a restart grid. Second of all, we've just had confirmation that the race distance will pick up where it left off, 9 minutes, 26 seconds to go. So when we do get back underway, we are going to get just under 9.5 minutes of racing to go. In what is the first round, of course, of 5 weekends of action in the Ferrari Challenge UK 2023. So this first weekend here at Snetterton, round 1 today, round 2 tomorrow. Then we head to Alton Park in 3 weeks' time, one of the most picturesque and challenging circuits in the UK. Brands Hatch, 1 day on the Indy circuit, 1 day on the Grand Prix circuit in the middle of the season, and then 2 great circuits at Silverstone and Spa to round out the 2023 season. The Spa-Francorchamps round, they will be getting the opportunity to race as part of the weekend of the Ferrari European Challenge Championship. So we've been brought news of that restart when we get it. There's lots of debris to clear up. They've got to check the damage to the barriers as well. But I think it's debris to clear up is the biggest issue at the moment. But the cars have been evacuated from the scene on the back of the flatbeds. And Adam, we've been given a restart grid, haven't we?
Yes, we have, and 13 rows on that grid. No, we haven't miraculously found many more combatants. What we have is a single file restart, of course, after the safety car guides them around for a lap. And it will be Andrew Morrow, of course, at the front of that grid, the driver who was streaking away with the win before this red flag. H. Sickens will be starting from second place, and Carl Cavers critically no longer has a gap to make up. He'll be there in third place, knocking on the door of second, if not the win. But lest we forget, 4th place John Dillon. He may well be able to negotiate his way back to the podium honours in this overall battle, as well as in Trofeo Pirelli. The first of our Coppa Shell drivers, Paul Hogarth, will be 5th in the queue as we get restarted. Graham DeZille, who of course was working his way up from the back of the grid, the Trofeo Pirelli driver, is 6th place. Paul Simerson in the 77 will be next, followed by Stuart Marston in the 15, Jonathan Satchel in the number 7, Chris Smith in the 69, Peter Hunter making his debut here in the 82 car. He will be rejoining the race in 11th place, with Julian Dye in the 66 and William Tavaya in the 23, rounding out the 13 cars that we're expecting to see restart this race after the red flag. Drivers have been suiting, booting and being reinstalled into their cars, so I don't think we're going to have too long to wait.
No, it's a good sign, isn't it, when they get back in the cars? They've received news clearly from race control, so engines being fired back up now, as you see William Tawai heading down towards the queue at the end of the pit lane. So as you quite rightly said, Adam, the big news here, or one of the big pieces of news for the restart, is that Carl Cavers, while still being 3rd, is now going to be a lot closer to the tail of H. Sickins than he was before the red flags came out. It was catching him anyway, but he still had work to do. And the other key thing is that because we count back a lap, it's been beneficial this for Graham DeZille, because he was the one on the grass at Riches after the coming together with Paul Hogarth. He was into a spin, he dropped way down the order in the number 19 car, but he's not back installed into his position of 6th place, right behind Paul Hogarth. So we're going to have round 2 of that particular battle potentially. So the safety car is about to lead them out of the pit lane, those that came into the pit lane. Some of them stopped on the grid anyway. It's about a 50-50 split. So Cavers actually out ahead of Sickins, and then Dillon, and then Hogarth, and then Tawaya goes out, and they will shortly be joined by Graham DeZille, who's a bit more leisurely away, but he's about to come down the pit lane as well. And the other one that we've got in the pit lane in his replacement car for this race is Robert Rees in the white 13 car. Everybody else had already stopped on the grid. Andrew Morrow's pretty lonely, isn't he, at the front of the grid? There's nobody around him at the moment, but the marshals will, once they're all back there, beckon them into their grid positions ready for the restart. So they'll do another lap behind the safety car, and then they will be going single file order for a restart, and the race distance will pick up exactly where the clock stopped, with 9 minutes and 26 seconds to go. Just under 10 minutes of probably pretty stressful driving for H. Sickins to try and keep a charging Carl Cavers behind him.
No, exactly right, yes. It's, of course, worth noting as well, curfew here at Snetterton is 6:30, so don't feel like we're risking not getting the race restarted. We have time here this weekend at Snetterton, and we will see the rest of this first race of the 2023 Ferrari Challenge UK complete as intended, albeit with this pause in the middle. What's motorsport without a little bit of drama and a few extra stops on the way, I suppose. I'm very intrigued, though, to see how everyone picks up. Of course, you mentioned Andrew Morrow's pace. We've talked at length today about his experience prior to Ferrari Challenge UK, or lack thereof. He won't have been through this situation many times before where the race has stopped. He's now there at the sharp end. He's got everyone behind him again. The likes of H. Sickins, John Dillon, Carl Cavers, even Paul Hogarth and Graham DeZille have all had to do this time and time again previously, and that might work against our race leading car.
Yeah, just looking down beneath the commentary box, we've got Graham DeZille has been held down in the pit lane. There he is to the left of your picture, the number 19 car, with alongside him the white now as it is, number 13 car of Robert Rees. So Graham DeZille, who's sort of slowly away from his pit box down the pit apron, and then has been held here. Now, whether he's got an issue, whether he's been told to wait there, I'm not sure, but he doesn't look like he's going to be on the track for the restart as it stands, even though on our grid that we've been given, he's been shown as having a rightful place 6th on the grid. It might be that he's going to have to start this one when they get there from the pit lane. So they'll do a lap behind, once they pull away from the grid, once they're back into the correct positions, they'll do a lap behind the safety car, then they'll do a single file rolling start. And once they've all gone past the pit lane exit, that is when anybody that's left in the pit lane will be allowed to join in at the back of the field. So it doesn't look like, after all of that, it's going to be another chance for Graham to get a really strong result here. Looks like he might have to try and come all the way back through the field again, albeit with just 9.5 minutes or less than 9.5 minutes to go. And Stexy making his way to the grid. And his debut, William Dwyer, the driver with the Ghanaian flag colours on his roof. That's a Dutch driver, British driver, Saudi Arabian driver, Ghanaian driver in this very international field. This first round of the 5th season of the Ferrari Challenge UK. So they're the marshals organising the drivers now, starting to shepherd them towards their correct grid positions. All this time, Adam, you mentioned Andrew Morrow. He's been sat there in the car boiling away, hasn't he? Others got out of the car. I think Andrew stayed in the whole time, had the door open, flapping it, trying to get a bit of air in. Graham Dizil has now been escorted to the end of the pit lane, but he's going to start from the pit lane by the looks of it. They might let him join the back of the rolling start rather than let them all come through. But either way, he, followed by Robert Rees, are going to be right at the back of the field. So everybody else there lined up in the order that we gave to you. Number 4, Andrew Morrow. Number 16, H. Sickins. Number 51, charging from the back of the field, Carl Cavers as your top 3. Number 61, John Dillon. Next, then, it is going to be in the green and black number 6 machine, Paul Hogarth, who you heard from speaking to Dave a few minutes ago. He's going to be 5th in the queue and the leading Coppa Shell class driver, but with now Paul Simerson even closer to his tail than he was in the first place, which was pretty close. Stuart Marston behind the 77 car of Paul Simerson. Stuart in the metallic blue, bright blue and yellow trim, number 15, 3rd in the category. So I suspect they're the 2 battles to watch. The one for 2nd place on the restart potentially could be really intriguing between Sickins and Cavers. Then I think we're going to have a great battle for the class win in Coppa Shell between Hogarth, number 6, in the green and black car, the 77 blue machine of Simerson, and the blue and yellow of Stuart Marston, the Maranello Sales backed car. So they are at the top 7, and then the rest of the field lined up with. Now this is just looking down the pit lane. I think that's just heading back to the garage and just looking at Marcus Vivian's car and wondering if it was going to be coming back in the race, but it's just the mechanic about to send it back into the garage, the engineer. So it's looking actually largely intact, but has a lot of grass from its excursion underneath the skirting and underneath the front splitter as well. But it didn't look externally like it's too badly damaged, actually, that one.
No, exactly. It looks like it's held up well there. Happy to say as well that we saw Paul Rogers wander over from medical centre after a check, going into the pit lane, and is now having a chat down in the pits with some of the Ferrari personnel. So he seems to be fighting fit.
Great.
And all okay after what was a big incident. So
such a shame, that beautiful new livery on the car as well, which we've been waxing lyrical about all weekend so far. And now it's, well, potentially you might not be in that car tomorrow, but anyway, they'll get it fixed, and we'll see it again this season, that's for sure. But hopefully we'll see Paul in action again, even if he's not in that car, for tomorrow's race.
Quite
and
possibly.
Likewise Marcus, yeah.
Yes, of course, because a lot of the damage that we saw sustained to the likes of Faisal Al Faisal's car is the kind of damage you could fix overnight. So maybe there is a spare car for Paul Rogers should he wish to race on Sunday. The safety car has gotten underway then, and the rest of the cars soon follow. We're getting there.
Indeed so, yeah, they're leading them away, and 1 lap of the Snetterton circuit behind that safety car, then it'll peel in, and then essentially becoming the pace car will be Andrew Morrow until they get to the start-finish line. No overtaking. The clock starts to tick down as soon as they leave the grid then, so it's 9 minutes 26 seconds for the restart, but really around about 3 minutes behind the safety car. You're probably going to get around about 6.5 minutes of racing, I think.
Yeah, I think 6.5 minutes, probably get 4 laps, 5 laps if we're quick, but here's the grid.
Yeah, so Andrew Morrow and H. Sickins on the front row of the grid, as they were on the original start. Carl Cavers with a much better grid this time around, though, and John Dillon, 4th place. They're not side by side, it's going to be a single file restart, but 5th and 6th, this is another battle, as I say, to watch. The 2 Pauls, Hogarth and Simerson. On the 3rd row, effectively 7th and 8th, Stuart Marston and Jonathan Satchell, who might well be battling for the final podium position. Graham Dizil has been released onto the circuit, incidentally, from the pit lane. Chris Smith and Peter Hunter will complete the top 10 for the restart. And then we'll have one of the drivers you heard from speaking to Dave down there in the pit lane, Julian Dye, on his debut for Maranello Sales. And then the one that's going to start from the pit lane, number 13, Robert Rees, will be on his own from the pit lane now because Graham Desile is trying to catch up to the pack now, having been released, and actually being released from the pit lane now is the number 13 car underneath the commentary box. He's heading towards turn 1, so Robert Rees will be at least on track for the restart of proceedings here. So two battles I talked about to watch, but if the car is okay, and I think it will be, Graham Desile's another potential one to watch charging through the order in this one, isn't he? To at least if he can get some decent championship points, get into the top 8 in his class.
Yeah, no, it's certainly quite possible for Desile. Of course, we thought he was going to be there among the Coppa Shell leaders on restart initially on the published sheet. Car looking a little bit slow, though, it must be said. I believe that's at the Bentley Straight, and it was apparently stopped momentarily, we understand. In fact, that's down between Wilson and Palmer. So looks like Desile's car might not be quite right at the moment.
Yeah, presumably to do with the contact that he had. So because it was flying before that, wasn't he, Graham Desile? So hopefully he can get involved in this race, but I'm not too sure that's going to be the case. You can see it's only just sort of ambling its way down to Agostini, and I think Graham might have to give it up. Meanwhile, the pace car is just heading towards Coram. Clock's still ticking down, of course. 6 minutes 35 seconds left on the clock. It's going to be more like 6 minutes of racing. So was it 1 minute 53, 54 a lap? We might squeeze 4 laps in. We'll definitely get 3. We might just squeeze a 4th lap in here. Andrew Morrow then, having built this massive lead up before the red flag, just needs to put that to one side now and get himself back into the mode. Safety car's actually stayed out, hasn't it?
Yeah, so the light's still on. I picked up on that, was wondering whether or not we would get a restart this time by. I'm assuming that might be because we've had cars released, of course, from the pits, and Desile's car looking a little bit slow around the circuit. That might be the reason for this safety car continuation. But obviously that's less than ideal for all of us, because that means at least one more lap before we get the racing back underway as the clock continues to tick down.
One person that doesn't care at all about that is Andrew Morrow, because that's one less lap to worry about, isn't it? Keeping everybody behind you. That probably hazard a guess that H. Sickins isn't too bothered about one more lap behind the safety car either, because I'm pretty sure, knows he's going to have his work cut out to try and keep Carcavers behind him in the battle for second place overall. So they will do one more lap behind the safety car. The safety car will get messages from race control, and if they know that the track is clear and they can pick things up, they will pick up the pace and get back to the start-finish line as quickly as they can. But even so, I suspect, it's just over 5 minutes left on the clock now, I suspect we're only going to get 2 laps probably. Time for 2 laps more of racing. Not ideal if you are trying to find your way back through the field or gain a position, but pretty ideal if you're just trying to defend where you are.
I see that Desile has actually come back into the paddock, so he is in the paddock, has managed to kind of sneak in through a back entrance there to remove himself from any danger. But what that does mean, hopefully, then, is that the obstruction, which we presume was the slow car of Graham Desile, has removed itself. And hopefully, fingers crossed, we see the lights out on the safety car this time by.
Yeah, Robert Rees went out and came back to the pits. I think he must have come through the paddock as well. Must need to get back here that quickly. But has had another go, so he's lined up, ready to go from the pit lane exit. Really, just as I say, using this as a bit of a test session. Although you can still get some championship points, because with a number of non-finishers, I think it's worth just going out there to do that. It's being released now, so he joins the track at least. But the main parade of cars, convoy of cars, is already 2/3 of the way round the lap. So 3 minutes 50 seconds and change to go, and wait for cars to come into our sight. They're still just about towards the end of the Bentley Straight now. Safety car lights off. Yeah. Safety car lights are off, which is the signal to us all that we are going to get things underway. So they're right on cue. Andrew Morrow starts to do a little bit of weaving to try and generate heat in the tyres, but you think, well, it's warm enough, why is he doing that? He's also trying to generate some heat into the brakes, because when he arrives at Richie's corner, he wants to know that those brake pads are nice and warm and the car is going to stop as quickly as he wants it to stop. So that's why you see a little bit of squirting of the accelerator, hitting the brakes, a bit of left and right moving, just to make make sure the car is up to speed, ready for the restart. So safety car is about to peel in. It's at Murray's, and then just coming through Coram is Andrew Morrow. Carl Cavers at the moment has left a bit of a gap back, but that quite quickly closes. He's lining things up now in the 51 car in third place to try and do something about H. Sickins in front of him. This is going to be a fascinating couple of laps of racing. We've got 2 minutes 50 seconds left to go, so it might just be 2 laps of racing as we get back underway. The green flag waves. It's the perfect restart from Andrew Morrow as he charges into Rich's corner. Side by side for 5th and 6th positions here though as Paul Simerson tries for the Copper Shell lead to get around the outside of Paul Hogarth. Paul was slightly on the back foot there in the number 6 car. But Simerson had a big go but couldn't find a way through, and defending now on the way into the Wilson hairpin is the number 6 car. He goes a bit deep into the corner. Tight in means wide out. That's not ideal, so he goes a bit wide onto the curbs, a couple of wheels onto the grass, but all about surviving now and trying to keep that 77 car behind him. They're nose to tail for 5th place and for the Copper Shell category lead. Briefly Simerson was in front, very briefly, as across the start-finish line, and you know what he wants to do. He wants to win this race. I don't think Paul is too bothered about finishing second. Simerson, that is. Hogarth is going to have his work cut out for a lap and 3/4 to keep him at bay.
Yeah, absolutely. As you say, a lap and 3/4. It has worked out as a 2-lap dash. No significant moving and shaking at the front of the order. The top 3 still in the sequence they were at the restart. Paul Hogarth certainly the driver under the most pressure at this stage for that Copper Shell lead. Simerson will try and line up a good run now down the Bentley straight, but didn't really get the run he wanted in the slightest, and in fact is now facing drama from behind from Stuart Marston. Meanwhile, H. Sickins, as we check back in on the battle for second place, with Carl Cavers for company as they go through the bomb hole. Could this be the opportunity for Cavers to make that much speculated move up to P2?
It's a very tight move to try something into Murray's. You're going to be right behind the driver coming through Coram, so I think he's going to launch one there. If you're thinking maybe about the hairpin, probably about Agostini, but he gets out of shape going through Murray's Carl Cavers and loses ground and has dropped right back away from Sickins, so that's cost him dear, and that should gift second place to H. Sickins now, because he's on to the final lap of the race behind Andrew Morrow. Meanwhile, Paul Simerson, having dropped that pace back behind Paul Hogarth, has managed to edge back away from Stuart Marston. Jonathan Sattler in the number 7 car trying to get on the podium. There you can see the race order. It's all closed up at certain stages, but actually it's ended up being the same top 5 as it was in the first place. So on the final lap of the race now, round 1 of the Ferrari Challenge UK, with Andrew Morrow dominating this race and already beginning to grow that gap back again. He was already nearly 1.4 seconds clear at the end of the first flying lap. So Carl Cavers there just coming a little bit unstuck on the way out of Murray's was what cost him, just as he was looking to line up an attack on the final lap of the race. But he's coming back, isn't he? He's had a really good first sector here, and he's closing back up to Sickins, maybe a bit too deep though, all the way to Hamilton. He's throwing the kitchen sink at this Carl Cavers, but he's a bit untidy and loses a bit of ground there on the way through Hamilton, so I think probably Sickins should have this covered now.
Possibly so, yes. Still a few corners to go, though, and I'm sure Cavers isn't going to give up on this until he goes past the checkered flag in the slipstream, albeit from a way off, as they run down the Bentley Straight and towards Brundle and Nelson. It's been an exemplary restart, and once again, the building of a gap, though, from the front of the order. Andrew Morrow with the best possible start to his season. Hasn't it been an amazing showing from a driver who 12 months ago was a rookie?
Absolutely right, second in his rookie season. He's about to become the early championship leader, though. A winner here at Snetterton around about 12 months ago. His debut win. He's starting to notch up more and more of these race victories, more and more trophies being brought home, because Andrew Morrow has been a real star here. Hogarth and Simerson are side by side as they come out of Murray's, but the checkered flag and the win goes to Morrow. Sickins in second place, Cavers in third. But what about the battle for Copper Shell? Paul Hogarth is just about going to hang on to it. They go over the line now, and Hogarth wins on his debut in the Copper Shell category, having switched from Trofeo Pirelli, but it wasn't for the want of trying. Paul Simerson got almost fully alongside him as they came through Murray's, but Hogarth kept his cool, and that was a dramatic finish in the end, just 0.3 of a second between them. So number 4 Morrow wins, 16 Sickins in second, Cavers number 51 in third, Dillon number 61 in fourth, And the winner of Coppa Shell in 5th place, number 6 Hogarth from 77 Simerson, who is 6th and 2nd in class. 15 Marston, who's on the podium in the first weekend of the season, 7th in class and 7th overall and 3rd in class. 8th number 7 Satchel, 9th number 69 Smith, 10th number 82 Hunter. Then Tawire number 23, 11th, Dye number 66 in 12th place and classified, but in and out of the pits, unfortunately, were Reese number 13, just crossed the line now, and Dazil in 14th place. And the fastest lap of the race will have come from the first part of the race, and of course that bonus point will have gone in the Trofeo Pirelli category at least to Andrew Morrow, so he'll get 15 points for the win, the point for pole, the point for entering the round, and the point for the fastest lap. That is a maximum of 18 points out of 18. That's not a bad way to open your account.
Absolutely not, no. First round and the clean sweep of all clean sweeps for Morrow. Hogarth with a victorious debut as well, of course, in the Coppa Shell after a few years campaigning in Trofeo Pirelli. And certainly on the evidence of this race, we can say that Morrow is looking more impressive than ever. He's been doing a few rounds in the gym and in the sim potentially over the winter, and also of course the same for Hogarth, Simerson. I would say in general Coppa Shell looking very exciting this year.
So then, super slow-mos of our top 3 drivers overall and in Trofeo Pirelli. The winner, number 4 there, Andrew Morrow, with the perfect start to his weekend. Quickest in free practice 1, free practice 2, qualifying, pole position, the race win, the full account, 2nd place, and a good start to his campaign for H. Sickins, and 3rd place in Trofeo Pirelli. We'll see him on the podium later, and from the back of the grid, a terrific drive from Carl Cavers. There you can see, making his way back to the pits now. What's going to be a very, very happy Paul Hogarth. He had a few ups and downs, I think it's fair to say, in the 2022 season. But this is just what he wants, and he is the winner of the category. So the top 3 in the Coppa Shell category, let's have a look at them now. Paul Hogarth had to work hard for that one, didn't he, with Paul Simerson breathing down his neck on that restart, and before the restart for a number of laps. Paul with a really impressive drive there. Paul Simerson also equally impressive, really on the attack. Yeah, it was on the back foot a little bit early on in the race, but he got his head down and kept on it and got himself back onto the podium. So great start to the season for him, and a really good start as well for Stuart Marston, who'll be the other driver on the Coppa Shell podium. Right, then let's have a look at the classification at the end of round 1 of the Ferrari Challenge Trofeo Pirelli UK 2023. There, Andrew Morrow, the winner, Hans Sickins in 2nd, Carl Cavers 3rd, 4th place to John Dillon, and Paul Hogarth, Paul Simerson, and Stuart Marston next up in 5th, 6th, and 7th. Jonathan Satchel in 8th place, Chris Smith in 9th, and a top 10 finish for him and for Peter Hunter on their debuts. William Tawire in 11th place, Julian Dye, Robert Rees, and Graham Dazil, the other classified finishers, with a few non-finishers there, and that red flag midway through the race. So they've made their way back into the pits now, and there'll be some celebrations. You can see a twinkle in the eye as well for our race winner, Andrew Morrow. Absolutely phenomenal talent. With this huge lack of experience of any kind of motorsport up until he came into this championship last year, and he is a real natural. So great to see him running well, and still working hard with the family business as well, their food distribution business, and what a talent he is. So Andrew Morrow there out of the car, looking very happy with himself, but also very understated as well, which is his star. But what a drive that was. Right, we can have a look back at some of the highlights then of what was an action-packed round 1 of the 2023 championship. There, the start, they got underway. Paul Rogers was involved in the thick of the action, the battle for the Coppa Shell, until he came unstuck, I'm afraid, midway through the race. Carl Cavers kept charging his way up the order. That was when Paul Simerson got a bit wide at Agostini and lost positions. We had Faisal with a trip to the grass. We had Carl Cavers charging through from the back of the field in the number 51 car with this terrific battle between Stuart Marston, Paul Simerson and Paul Hogarth. Graham Dazil would then catch them up and join into that battle as well, making his debut Peter Hunter from a loaded grid position, getting into the top 10. Hogarth and Simerson were at it hammer and tongs all the way through the race. Then Dazil and Hogarth coming together, and that spin and then the damage to the car for Graham Dizil after what was a good drive through the order. The big coming together and the cause of the red flag with that huge crash coming out of Agostini, but both drivers have seen and have been told both okay there, Marcus Vivian and Paul Rogers. And then on the restart, what a battle this was for the Coppa Shell lead. Simerson briefly got his nose in front on the restart over the start-finish line, but Hogarth held him off on the way into Riches, held him off at the end of the race as well. At the head of the field, though, there was simply no stopping this man. Andrew Morrow takes the checkered flag and opens his 2023 account with a race victory. Sickins, I think, will be very pleased with second place because it looked like he would have come under pressure from Carl Cavers and then nose to tail, almost side by side over the line in the battle between Hogarth and Simerson for the first Coppa Shell race victory of the season. There is Paul Hogarth there to the left of your picture, getting deserved congratulations there because that was the drive of a man who knows how to keep his cool, because Paul Simerson was knocking on the door, trying to kick the door down, smashing the window in, but he just couldn't find a way through, and Paul Hogarth did just enough to take the race victory in Coppa Shell. Good drive that, wasn't it?
It really was, yeah, no, showed his class and experience, has raced GTs for a long time, Ferrari GTs specifically, for a number of years as well, of course. One of the drivers who has been here in Ferrari Challenge UK for the duration, and a driver with lots of mileage therefore in the 488 Challenge Evo specifically, and using every ounce of that knowledge to stave off Simerson in the closing stages of that race. I'm sure for Hogarth, he was almost hoping that Graham Dizil was going to be there on the originally published restart grid sheet that we got. It was going to be Hogarth, then Dizil, then Simerson. So Dizil may have been a rather nice bumper between Hogarth and the rest of the Coppa Shell category. But that proved not to be the case. And yeah, Hogarth doing a great job to start his season off in the best way possible.
Yeah, you can tell it was the first day back at school for a few people. It was a bit wild and wonderful out there, wasn't it? But it gave us some terrific entertainment. What it has shown is that Andrew Morrow is going to be a force to be reckoned with. But also, we're going to have some terrific battles, I think, in the Coppa Shell category, because there was not very much at all to choose between those drivers. And, of course, with Rogers and Vivian both being very unfortunate out of that race as well, they showed their pace, didn't they? They were having a great battle up until the point where it all, I'm afraid, went wrong. So the cars are back in the pit lane. In a few minutes' time, we'll have the first podium presentations of the year. But hopefully before that, we'll get to hear from a couple of drivers as well. So over in the background there, Julian Dye did a pretty impressive job, didn't he, in his first race. Just, I think your first race weekend, just bring it home really is the key, isn't it? Get some mileage under your belt, get some experience, and get some championship points. So they've done well there, and you can see they've all been beckoned towards the podium, which is here at Snetterton, actually right underneath the commentary box, isn't it, at the end of that pit lane. So there's rather wonderful silverware that's going to be presented in a few minutes' time to some of these drivers as well. They're well looked after. And one of the great things about this championship, Adam, is it's, as you've seen, pretty feisty, pretty competitive out on track. But there's massively good camaraderie between the drivers in the paddock. They're many of them great friends, they've formed great friendships, and while they race hard on track, actually it's a really friendly atmosphere in the paddock, isn't it?
Yes, it's almost a sporting social club in a sense. They've got this elite level motorsport to do each day, and then between sessions they have the kind of socializing element. You'll see them in groups, all having conversations and chatting away. It is a very nice atmosphere anytime you're in a Ferrari Challenge UK paddock. You can tell there's a lot of healthy mutual respect there.
Absolutely right. Well, I think drivers are gathered around the podium, and Dave Richardson is down there. So it's time for the podium.
Thank you very much. It is time for the podium then, down here at Snetterton. And as always, with the Ferrari Challenge UK, we are going to start with the Trofeo Pirelli podium. Thankfully, I've got the papers here, so I can't get anything wrong. But how could I get anything wrong for P3? Please welcome to the third step of the podium, Carl Cavers. Taking P2 and richly deserved H. Sickins. He won here at Snetterton. And he loves this track. Please big it up for Andrew Morrow. So our 1, 2, 3 drivers, let's steam in here and welcome Mr. Andrea Bertolini, official Ferrari GT driver, making the trophy presentation, first of all, to Carl Cavers, then, of course, to H. Sickins. And all of a sudden, the mantelpiece in Andrew Morrow's house has to become a bit bigger because he's adding trophies like never before. And let's welcome dealer representative here from Charles Hurst as well. But before that, of course, Lucio Vagani is here from Pirelli. Pirelli Motorsport Manager for Ferrari Challenge to make the Trofeo Pirelli presentation to Andrew Morrow. We also have a dealer representative. Charles Hurst is here. Well done. Go and enjoy the moment. And Andrea Bertolini making that trophy presentation. And before anything else, I'm going to steam in here and talk to Andrew Morrow. A turbulent race. You must love coming to Norfolk because, of course, here last year you took your first race win. Blow me, man, you've taken another one here.
Yeah, no, it's been a fantastic day. It was a tough race, but managed to slip away nicely at the start, get into my own groove and just keep going. Restart made it a wee bit more tricky, but got away again and got the job done. So, no, brilliant day.
Well done to you, Andrew Morrow, then on the top step of the podium. Ladies, gentlemen, boys and girls, they're all going to jump together on the top step of the podium for the photographs here. But please make some noise for our Trofeo Pirelli stars. So P3, Carl Cavers, P2, H. Sickins, and P1, that bloomin' Andrew Morrow. Well done. And the bottles are clinked together, and we will now repair the podium and de-liquefy it. Ready, of course, for Coppa Shell to come. I'll tell you what, Andrew Morrow has got a heck of a shot with the bubbly, I can tell you. He managed to get, I haven't got a lot of hair, but what little hair I have got, it's been soaked. Blooming man. And there he is. He's more excited about soaking me with champagne than he is about taking the race win. Rotten devil. Well done, Andrew Morrow. Absolutely brilliant stuff. As soon as I get the okay from my producer here, we're going to do our Coppa Shell podium. But just final photographs being taken with race winner and, of course, dealer representative here from Charles Hurst as well. All smiles. Okay, now, ladies and gentlemen, stand by. It is time for our Coppa Shell podium. And here we go then with top three in Coppa Shell. First of all, please welcome P3, Stuart Marston. Taking P2 right now, it's Paul Simerson. And on the top step of the podium, and I'm tempted to say at last, Paul Hogarth. And of course, our dealer will be represented by Stratstone Manchester, who will join us in due course. But in the meantime, delighted to have the Ferrari North Europe Regional Managing Director, Mr. Francesco Barli, here to make the trophy presentations. First of all, to Stuart Marston. Next trophy goes to Paul Simerson. And taking the race win and the race winner's trophy, Paul Hogarth. And let's welcome our dealer in here as well from Stratstone Manchester, because we have another trophy to be awarded. David is here from Stratstone Manchester to receive his trophy, and I hope get a dousing of champagne just like I got. And Francesco Barli then making the trophy presentation there. Let me steam in here, forgive me, and try and grab a word with Paul Hogarth. I said then, back on the top step of the podium, at last, Paul, it seems to have been a while.
It's been a long time, and the last time was, where was it? It was here. No, it was Donington. It was Donington, yeah. No, it's amazing. I'm really pleased to get back, especially after starting 11th. So sort of P7 in class, so it was a bit of a battle, and sorry about Paul and that little accident, but yeah, it's great. I'm really, really chuffed. Thank you.
Well done, well done. So Paul Hogarth on the top step of the podium then, and with the drivers all getting together on the top step of the podium. Please, for the final time today, make it loud and proud for our Coppa Shell podium, Stuart Marston, Paul Simerson and Paul Hogarth. And back up. That is a proper podium celebration, I can tell you. So from there, the podium done and dusted, and Chris and Adam, truthfully, I'm off for a shower now and a small sauna to sort myself out. Back to you guys.
What a thought. Thanks very much, Dave. Well done to our winners. Join us again tomorrow for live coverage of qualifying 2 at 10:45. And then we'll have all the action from race 2 starting from 10 to 3 tomorrow afternoon. Thanks for your company from Dave Richardson, Adam Weller and me, Chris Hartley. Join us tomorrow for round 2 of Ferrari Challenge UK. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.